guest. Her name is Mariel Colón, and she not only represents Michael Avenatti. Of course, as you know, attorney Michael Avenatti, he's appeared on this show, 50, 60 times, friend of the show. And she's also represented El Chapo and Jeffrey Epstein, to make a few very, very high-profile clients that she has represented. Mariel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to your show. Good morning. Good, pretty good. How about yourself?
Well, doing the best we can in this situation as yours. Well, how does this affect your job as a high-profile attorney during this coronavirus pandemic? How difficult is it for you to work?
Well, it's virtually impossible because courts are closed, jails are closed, so you cannot visit clients. Trials are being pushed back, and basically, unless it's an emergency, you can't get a hold of the judge, or everything has been pushed up to August, September. So of course, it's difficult, of course, and it delays the process, and it delays the cases, and
sure.
You have clients frustrated inside of the jail that they don't really know what's going on, and you're trying to fight to get them out, some of them, and it's just, it's a lot.
Yeah, let's talk about that, and let's first start with Michael Avenatti, who I know personally, who's made a bunch of in-studio appearances on our show in the last few years, and I got a chance to know Michael pretty well. Explain to me this. How is it possible that with the crimes that he was accused of or even convicted of, that he ends up in a cell that was once used by El Chapo? How the heck does that happen to begin with?
So it was very unfortunate. The reason why that happened is because, I don't know, I'm sure you're aware that MCC was a facility where Jeffrey Epstein, unfortunately, passed away. And as a result, the jail, Michael Avenatti being a high-profile character, the jail just wanted to, take precautions and basically cover themselves in case something were to happen to Michael.
And I get that, but my understanding is that, and he wrote a letter to some of his supporters, of the conditions that he has had to face there, how cold it is in there. There's rats everywhere. It smells like urine. My understanding is his bunkmates, for lack of a better term, was very ill. He got sick a month ago with bronchitis. Talk to me a little bit about just the conditions there. It appears to me that if you're going to treat anybody like that, those would even be bad conditions for a serial killer, let alone someone that was convicted of what Michael Avenatti was convicted of.
Oh, no, absolutely. And actually, my two previous clients, Chapo and Jeffrey Epstein, they were both on 10 South, where Chapo was there for the entirety of his case. But Jeff Epstein was also there for a period of time. And I've been there myself as as an attorney meeting with them. They have their own private, client attorney rooms. They are, terrible conditions. First of all, the lights are on 24 hours a day in the cell. The inmate cannot turn them off. They are being monitored. There's 2 cameras on each cell. There's only 10 South has only 6 units. Okay, these units are monitored 24 hours with 2 cameras on each unit or on each cell. They don't clean them. There's rats infestation. You can see rats running around from cell to cell. My clients have told me this. You can see the mold coming out of the water faucets. They are not allowed to purchase regular water bottles from the commissary. They have a very restricted commissary, so they're forced to drink water out of the water faucet, and it's just very moldy. The air filters are completely full of mold. I've actually seen this myself. It's just very unsanitary. It's inhumane. It's cruel. They don't have access to outdoors exercise. They just have access to an adjacent room next to the cells, where it's as small as the cells, and it just has an outdated bicycle and an outdated small TV that they just have access to 1 hour a day from Monday through Friday. The rest of the days, they just spent it, inside of their cells, unless they have legal visits. They are not allowed any social visits unless they are authorized. Usually what happens is that 10 South, it's really for inmates that are under the SANS. The SANS are the special administrative measures that are imposed, by the Department of Justice. So
wow.
you had cases like Michael Avenatti and Jeffrey Epstein,
right,
which the jail just put them there for allegedly for safety reasons, but they really shouldn't be there because
no, of course not.
This is a very restrictive unit. And
of course not.
They are forced to, and they don't even though they're there because the jail wants them there, not because of the Department of Justice wants them there.
Right.
They are subjected to the same treatment.
Right, and I want to be fair on this one, and I don't want to make this political, even though I might ask you a political question. But, look at Paul Manafort. I defended him as well. I don't think he belonged in that jail. I thought he was treated unfairly, regardless of the crimes that he committed. And I say the same thing about Michael Avenatti. This type of situation should not be used for people that have committed these types of crimes. That's just my opinion. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Mariel Colón. She is the current attorney for Michael Avenatti, also has represented some very high-profile cases, Jeffrey Epstein, and as she mentioned, El Chapo as well. Okay, so take me back to the guilty verdict, and then we'll talk a little bit about a positive judgment you got. Michael's going to be able to go home for a little while. We'll talk about that. Take me back inside the courtroom before the jury read the verdict. How did you feel about this case, and did you think Michael would be found innocent?
So I want to be clear. I'm only counsel for Michael in one of his New York cases. He has 3 cases. He has the Nike case, which is in the Southern District of New York, the Nike case as well, and then he has the case in the Southern District of California.
Right.
I am counsel for him on the Stormy case, on the Stormy Daniels case.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I was not part of the Nike case. I was not there before the verdict. I was,
understood.
Outsider, so to say.
Okay, understood. The fact that Michael Avenatti now eventually, I think in like a week or so, correct me if I'm wrong, he's going to be released. There's going to be a lot of things that he's not going to be able to do when he goes home. For example, he doesn't have access to his cell phone. He's not going to have access to the internet. I believe he's going to have to wear a bracelet. But just the fact that he's going to be able to be released for 3 months, he must be happy about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he knows what's going on outside in the world, and he himself is living, these conditions. And you know what? They're even more vulnerable and susceptible to getting the virus because they are locked up in, a dormitory style, which that's the unit where Michael is located at. That's how it is. It's like a dormitory style where everybody uses the same bathroom, the same everything, right? So mind you, it's very, hard. However, the MCC decided to put them on a quarantine themselves, each inmate. So they were going to do that. I don't know how that worked out because the problem is that as a result, the communications have been restricted. However, he definitely is very excited and very relieved to be going home. I mean, he doesn't belong in the MCC. He doesn't belong in jail. So, of course, for any inmate, not just Michael, it would be, a relief to be home and safe, away from, these conditions. And jail, and specifically that jail, it's rough as it is.
I have to ask you this question about Michael Avenatti. And I've known him for a little while. Obviously, you've known him probably better than I do. But this is a man who went after Donald Trump way before he became famous and took the Stormy Daniels case, right? Michael Avenatti has been ruthless in going after some of the most highest profile people in this country and in the world. So my question to you is this. If you think he never went after Donald Trump and members of his administration and his attorney, Michael Cohen, if he didn't become as high profile as he did become in taking the Stormy Daniels case, do you think he would be in the situation he is in now and he would be a convicted felon?
I gotta say, I definitely the fact that he went after Donald Trump and all these high profile, powerful people put him in this position. Yes, definitely. And especially put him on the MCC as well.
Isn't that sad, though? Isn't that a sad state that we're in? You're an attorney, right? And you understand the Constitution probably better than anybody. Isn't it a sad state of affairs that we are in now, that you can't go after powerful people, even though those powerful people might be wrong? Look, I know you haven't represented him in the Nike case, but I'll even talk about the Nike case, and they say, well, he extorted Nike. You know what? I want a big company like that to be exposed for what they have been doing for years. Nike has been paying
Absolutely.
players under the table for years, but nobody wants to talk about Nike, and nobody wants to talk about their guilt. They just want to put Michael away forever and ever, and they want this story to go away, and I think it's disgusting.
Absolutely. Especially, I think Nike is a perfect case where these are allegedly also criminals, and they've committed criminal acts, but they don't get caught, and they just used Michael. And yes, it is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's sad, and it's unfortunate that Michael, is paying for it. It's paying for just trying to advocate for his client, which is what he was trying to do.
Yeah, no question. And, I'm on his side there. As far as whether he extorted Nike or not, I find it really weird that his client testified in a way against him, that Michael never conferred with him about what he was doing, which, by the way, is legal. There's nothing illegal about that. But anyway, we wish Michael the best. We're glad that he is going to be able to maybe spend some time with some family for maybe 3 months or so. Whatever the case may be, he's obviously more mentally tough than I am. There's no question about that. But I have to ask you about a few other cases, if I may, Mariel, if that's all right. Since you did represent Jeffrey Epstein, I have to ask you this question because it's a controversy and there's conspiracy theories and people still talk about it. Do you believe, as Jeffrey Epstein's former attorney, do you believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, or do you suspect there could have been foul play?
This is a question that I've been asked before, and I've tried to stay away from answering it for obvious reasons. There was an open investigation and whatnot, but I do not believe that, or I find hard to believe that my client committed suicide.
May I ask you, if you don't mind, what would lead you to believe that? Like, is just spending time around Epstein or things you've heard?
Yeah, spending time around him. Of course, you ultimately, only he knew really how he was feeling inside, because he was the one, living under those terrible conditions at the end of the day. And he may or may not have been, putting on a good face when we would go visit him. But from what I took from when he was alive, our conversations, I never thought, or it never crossed my mind that he could have, or that he would have, tried to hurt himself. And also, it was a little bit the incident 2 weeks before. There was another incident with his roommate, and that was the way that was handled, and the department there, the psychology department there, removed him from suicide watch because he didn't show any signs of wanting to hurt himself. And
right.
It's just it's just a lot of things that led me to believe that that I don't.
How does this happen?
I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think that Jeff would have.
That's interesting. Mariel, how does this, and by the way, again, Mariel Colón represented Jeffrey Epstein. How does it happen that you have a high-profile prisoner, and yet you have two security guards who were, falling asleep, and there's no video surveillance that we can see in this day and age? With a high-profile client like that, there should be conspiracy theories as far as I'm concerned, because we don't even have a video and there's nothing, and now you have these two security guards that were allegedly sleeping and not even paying attention to his cell. How the hell does that happen?
Right. No, definitely. And actually, they have put him on 10 South before putting him on 9 South, which is where this occurred, because they were so concerned, for his safety. So if you're concerned about someone's safety, how are you just going to – how does this happen? I mean, it shouldn't have happened, because you were so concerned about this person's safety, you were watching him.
It's embarrassing, but I also would say I think Michael Avenatti is suffering because of that. It sounds to me that they don't want another horrible situation to happen, so they're making Michael Avenatti pay for that. Is that a fair assumption?
So that's exactly what it is, and it is really because Michael is a high-profile defendant. Because if it would have been any other white-collar, accused defendant, and that person would not have been a high-profile defendant, this would not have happened. Because it won't make the papers. If God forbid something happens to that person.
Right.
But because it's Michael, and it definitely would make the papers, definitely they are.
Oh, sure.
He's paying for it, unfortunately.
No question. I mean, I'm just curious, when you've had conversations with Michael, a lot of things have happened since he's been behind bars. Of course, the Kobe Bryant situation was a huge story and a very sad, tragic story. And now this coronavirus situation. I mean, when you go in there and you talk to Michael, and obviously he doesn't have access to a television, he doesn't have access to the internet, he doesn't have an idea of what's really going on. I would imagine you're his only, pave way to what's going on in society. What has been his reaction to everything that has been going on in the world, particularly the last couple months?
So it's all been. He's been. So yes, we're the only people that can bring him newspaper articles and really tell him what's going on. So and it's limited as well, mind you. So it's been tough on him as well. But one thing I can tell you is he's very excited to, of course, get out of the MCC, and very appreciative for all the people that have helped, and his friends and his attorneys and everything.
Yeah, no question. Well, we're glad that at least you're giving him some of that information. I have to ask you, you have represented some of these clients, some of the highest profile cases on the planet. So I have to ask you a little bit about what it was like getting to know El Chapo, just from a human to human perspective. I mean, what was that situation like? How, obviously you're a woman that is extremely accomplished. You've been doing this for a very long time. You're very good at what you do, obviously. But as you know, there's a lot of great attorneys out there. How do you land El Chapo as your client? How does that happen?
So actually, El Chapo was my first client straight out of law school. And
wow.
I started on that case as a paralegal. And when I passed the bar and I became an attorney, Chapo himself offered me to then join in, his team as an attorney instead of, staying, of course, as a paralegal. Otherwise, I would have, left the positions for something else. So he offered me the job, and of course I took it. And I can tell you that he, to me, Guzman, I don't really refer to him as El Chapo. I refer to him as Guzman. And he's nothing like the press, made him out to be all these years. He's a gentleman. He's very appreciative. He, just very appreciative of the work that, their attorneys are doing, and very strong-minded. He has endured these conditions because he was not a lucky one, and he was not able to get out of 10 South. And now he is in Colorado at the Supermax in Florence, Colorado, under even worse conditions. And he has handled it, like a champion. And, it's very sad. It's very sad because here you have another person that, may or may not have, allegedly ran, a drug organization, but putting all of these crimes that he was charged with and convicted of aside, he is a human being who, has little kids, has kids, and it's a father. He's a son, and it's just very, it has feelings, and it's very sad, to see the government, our government, treating him that way.
When was the last time you actually spoke with El Chapo?
Last week.
Wow. I mean, listen, I don't expect you to share everything, but can you just share us a little bit of what that conversation was like with El Chapo and what he said to you, and whatever you can share with us, because we find it pretty interesting. Like, what was that conversation like with him?
Well, unfortunately, client attorney privilege won't allow me to. Also, Guzman, unfortunately, he is under the SAMs, which, it's very hard for me to talk to you or anybody else that's not, signed, approved, SAM's approved about our conversations. But of course, general stuff, about his appeal. We're appealing his sentence. So, and we're appealing his case. So we spoke about his appeal and, just general things about what's been going on with the virus. Of course, he's also in solitary confinement with very limited access to the outside world. And just, a little bit about what's going on and his appeal.
No, I appreciate that.
And just in general terms.
I appreciate that, and I know that you can't go into detail. I have to ask you this, though, because Sean Penn had some sort of friendship/relationship with, El Chapo. Have you ever had any interactions with him when all this stuff went down? And what's the latest there? Because that was a very unique situation. Of course, Sean Penn, one of the most, awarded, one of the best actors around. I think that's very fair to say. What was that like?
No. I mean, he was not a witness in trial. He was not called to testify. So I've never met him personally. Of course, the communications or things that my client has told me about their interaction are privileged. But my understanding, and this is what it's outside and easily available for everyone to look for on the internet, is that Mr. Sean Penn, he wanted to, make this movie with Kate Del Castillo about Guzman. And that's really, my understanding is that's really what the relationship was about. It was trying to make El Chapo's movie.
Right. No, understood. Obviously, his story is pretty incredible. And you're right. It is sad when anyone has a family, kids, it's a sad situation. There's no doubt about that. Well, Mariel, you're obviously very, very good at what you do, and we appreciate you taking some time to join us. And I also say, we consider Michael Avenatti a friend, and we wish him the best. And if there's ever an opportunity where he would like to come on with us when he's out, we would gladly give him that opportunity just to see how he's doing. So maybe pass that along to him if you can. I know that you're not able to speak with him as much as you would like to, but we certainly wish him the best, and we're glad that you guys that are working for him are able to at least get him released, at least for temporarily. I think that's great for him and his family, and we appreciate you for coming on and talking with us, Mariel. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.